Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and today I have a book tag for you. And let me just tell you, it is a gray, rainy, gloomy day outside. So hopefully you won't hear the rain falling down my metal chimney. I don't know about that, but I do know a little bit about this book tag. So let me tell you about it. It is called the Reading Shifts tag. This was created by Hannah at Hannah's Books, and I was tagged by Katie at Books and Things. I don't know why I had to think about that. I'm literally looking at her face on my phone. Anyway, let me go ahead with the tag and share these couple of questions with you. And I really like the idea of this book tag. It is just sharing with you about how my own reading has shifted over the course of my life. So I think that's fun. I've read through most of the questions, but not all of them. And I've gotten through most of Katie's video, but not all of it. So the first half, I think I'm going to know what I want to say. The second half is going to be a surprise to us both. Okay, question number one. How has your reading developed over your lifetime? Do the kinds of books that bring you the most pleasure now differ from the books you loved most earlier in your life? If you've seen big changes in your reading since you've matured, what might explain your changing interest? So, okay, my reading over the course of my life. I have always loved to read, like since I was a little children. Was I in multiples? Since I was a little child, I have always loved to read. I even loved being read to the point where my parents were like happy when I learned how to read because they were like, oh, thank goodness. And that came full circle. I had that same experience with my son. I was so glad when he learned how to read. Loved reading to him, whatever. Getting off track. Let me try and stay a little bit more on track. So I've always loved to read. I've always been a big reader. I think the biggest development in my reading has just come as I've learned more and more about literature and how to talk about it, because I personally have found that the better I am able to speak about literature and know more about literary terms, the better I'm able to express my thoughts on it, and the deeper I'm able to go into a book when I'm reading, and the more I'm able to get out of it. Um, so I think that's just been the biggest change over my course of my life. I've always liked to read a variety of things. I've always liked to read really big books, and that will probably come up. Um, and I would say the books that I enjoyed the most as far back as I can think of are still books that I really enjoy now. And like one example I have of that is The Phantom Tollbooth. Loved this as a child, still love it now, thinking about rereading it soon. But books that I really liked in high school, I'm finding that a lot of those I still like. And I feel like the biggest difference that has come is that maybe there were books I didn't like in high school and I might still not like them, but I'm better able to express why now than I was when I was in high school. Question number two. Do you find yourself choosing different kinds of books at different periods of the year? I can answer right off the bat, no, I'm not a seasonal reader. I like the idea of that, but I almost never do it. Like, I think about like, oh, this book is for winter, and then come back to it in the summer anyway. Because I am a bit of a mood reader in some ways, but I don't think in terms of the seasons. I think the one exception to that is Christmas stories. Like, I just can't read a Christmas story if it's not around Christmas time. It does also go on to ask, however, might you read very different kinds of books while on vacation? And I would say yes to that. Generally, it depends on how long I'm going on vacation. I usually try to bring only one book, and I usually try to make it something that's easy to pick up and down, to pick up and put down rather. But that said, I also know myself, and it really depends on who I'm going on vacation with. I know if I'm vacationing with my family, they like to be busy and out and doing stuff. Oh, now it's lightning. And I know that because of that. I don't know if you guys can hear this storm going on around me, but it's so hilarious. And like, I'm filming today no matter what, and it's supposed to storm all day, so we're just rolling with it. But if you see flashes of light, and if the power goes out, that's what's happening. I'm totally not plugged in here, so you and I will be able to continue this conversation regardless of what spooky, weird stuff happens in the background. Okay, what was I saying? Vacation. I will bring a vacation read, but I'm also highly aware of the fact that my family likes to be busy and vacation read may not happen. Even when I go on like relaxing vacations by myself, I'm usually more interested in going out and enjoying the city or the area that I'm in more than reading in that moment. So I'll usually try to make sure that I've got an audiobook that has worked well for me on vacation, or that I have something really light and easy and am not in the middle of a buddy read, because I never know when I'm going to get to read on vacation. And so I just plan around those. Number three, do specific experiences in your life ever shape what you choose to read? For example, do you read obsessively about child rearing when your kids were little? Yep. About gardening as spring's about to begin? No, I'm not going to garden. And about the experience of grief when someone you love died, etc. So I think I read a lot having to do with like what's going on in my life, kind of like I said with like the vacation. But there was definitely a time in my life where I was reading more about child rearing or more about cooking when I was trying to get better at that, or more about healthy eating, that kind of thing. But by and large, when I'm really able to read, I'm just reading the type of fiction that I want to read. Number four, have there been any times in your life when circumstances have limited or changed your reading in some way? Perhaps caretaking responsibilities or a move, or personal illness, or maybe just long-term travel that has limited your book choices. How do you deal with those circumstances? I definitely am affected by those things. For example, when I was child rearing, that was when I read the least. I just couldn't figure out how to do it in a way that felt good to me. And so I actually stopped reading books consistently for a very long time. And then once my son was at an age where he was going back to school and and he was in school, and then when he was older in school and didn't need as much help after school, then I found I was able to start reading a lot more, and I went back to, what you see behind me basically. Um, and yeah, so I think like personal life circumstances are definitely what impacts my reading the most, more so even than my mood. So if I am sick, that's more likely to impact my reading than if I'm just feeling sad. I don't feel like my emotions always direct my reading unless I'm starting to feel like I'm heading towards a reading slump. Which brings me to question number five, which says BookTube is full of discussions of reading slumps when dedicated readers seem to lose interest for books for a while in books. Sometimes they just can't find a book that appeals to them. Have you ever experienced a slump? If so, how did you handle it? If not, do you have any advice to people who are experiencing slumps? I would say for the most part, I don't really experience reading slumps, like not in the way that I've heard people talk about them where like they last for weeks and weeks and months. For me, I can usually tell when I'm going into a reading slump because I stop reading every day. Like, I love reading, it's my biggest hobby. And so I do read pretty much every single day. And so it's very easy for me to tell when I'm going into a reading slump because I'll stop wanting to pick up books. Like, every book I'm reading, I will not want to pick up if I'm reading multiple books or whatever. And so for me, the way I get out of that, if I'm really feeling that, is I DNF the book, or I DNF multiple books. So that is my advice. It's probably the book. It's not you. You're just not finding a book that you want to read, or you're in the middle of reading a book you don't want to read. So my advice would be to let it go. And it doesn't have to be a permanent DNF. It doesn't have to be a hard DNF where you're never going to come back to the book. I believe in soft DNFs where you realize that this is a book you're still interested in, but now is just not the time to read it because either your head's just not in the right space, the mood's not correct for what you need, the timing is not right, whatever it may be. And if you're still interested, put it back on the shelf, come back to it later. I do that. But I also go, no, never. So, and I think that's why I don't experience such large reading slumps. It is chucking it down outside. I think you could probably tell by the color. Like everything has gone blue and gray. Anyway, okay, number six. Booktubers also talk about book hangovers when readers are so moved by a book that they find it difficult to move on to a new book. Have you ever felt this way? Yes. This is the one thing that will lead me closest to a reading slump. Now, I'll still be able to continue reading through this feeling of the book hangover, but like it will be with a feeling of discontent about everything. This was a book that made me feel that way. I read this book. I loved this book. It's David Copperfield. And then I continued to dislike the vast majority of everything I read after it. And not because they weren't good in their own rights, but I really just wanted to keep reading David Copperfield. Like, I wanted more of it. Like, I wanted the book to go on. I wanted part two. I wanted something. I wanted more of the feeling that I had with that book. And so I do tend to get that feeling, not with every 5-star read, but with those like really strong 5-star reads that leave you feeling super excited and in awe. Those are the books that will leave me with a book hangover. And then I'm like, what's the point of reading? I'm pretty satisfied. That doesn't happen often, but it has happened where I'm like, I'm good. That was great reading. I don't know that I need to read anymore, ever. So, fortunately, that doesn't happen often, or maybe that's an unfortunate thing. Maybe we should want that to happen more often. I don't know. But let's move on to question number 7, which is the last question. Tell us about a few books that almost always work for you, something that might have remained a favorite throughout your life, despite any changing reading taste, something that always seems to hit just right spot when you need a lift, or perhaps some lifetime book hangover where the text will always be at the back of your mind. So I can think of a couple of books that would fit this. I've already shown you some. This book always hits right. This book is a book that no matter what mood I'm in, no matter what time it is, and apparently no matter what age I am, it hits right every single time. If you haven't read The Phantom Tollbooth, give it a try. Don't be turned off by the fact that it's kind of slow and boring at the beginning. It's very intentional. Other things that hit just right. This is a book that I can't stop thinking of, and I'm rereading it this year, and I'm hoping that that's the case. I don't know that it would be a book that I would say would work perfect for me at all times, but it's definitely what I can't get out of my mind. Invisible Man is another book that's like that by Ralph Ellison. I think about that book all the time, and I'm still just in awe of what he did in that book. Yeah, that's a really interesting book that I can't wait to reread at some point. Other things that work for me pretty much all the time. Not specifically this book, not Basil, but Wilkie Collins. As an author, yeah, if like I just need to pick up a book and know that I'm probably at least going to like it, Wilkie Collins works really well for me for that. So does pretty much anything Europa Edition puts out. I might not love it, it might not hit it out of the park, but I'm gonna like it a lot and it's gonna be a satisfying read. I have this book, The Inevitable. Again, not specifically this book. I'd have to reread it a few times, but more the things this book does. It's science fiction. It's a little bit campy and funny, but hits on and talks about some really interesting and deep themes and is heartwarming. Those things always work well for me. And so if I find books that have that in them, I know I'm probably going to enjoy it. And then the other thing that helps a lot and is something that I want to try more of is mood reading. And not literally just reading whatever I'm in the mood for, but specifically bibliotherapy, like in this book, The Novel Cure, which is literally looking at the idea of like, how are you literally feeling in the moment and what might be a book that can help you relate to that feeling. So like if I'm happy, like what are books that have characters and people and things in them that are happy? Or sometimes if I'm sad, like I want to read a book, not that helps me wallow in my sadness, but shows somebody else dealing with sadness for the same reason, that kind of thing. And that's the idea of what that book is about. All of these books will be linked in the description box below if you want to learn more about them, but I don't want to go too deep into them because I just wanted to make this quick and answer the questions. But yeah, I think that is what I think of when I think of that question and like books that would work for that kind of thing and that are frequently working for me, except for that last one, because I haven't actually, like, I've read it and flipped through it, but I haven't tried the bibliotherapy yet. Let me know if you have and if you find it works, because, inquiring minds want to know. Number 8 is tag some people. For once in my little taggy life, I've actually written down a handful of people. So I'm going to tag Nikki at my messy bookshelf, Michele at Michele and Reads, Alyse at Alyse Reads, and Alex at Stay at Home Reader. So you can go check out their channels. Hopefully they'll do this tag. No pressure if any of you don't want to. And if you weren't one of those 4 people and you like the questions in this tag and want to answer about how your reading taste may have shifted over the course of your life, consider yourself tagged. So that's it for me today. Thanks for watching this video and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.